Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? It's Patrick here from Have Cheetah Will View, 8 Questions With. And lo and behold, we are over in the UK. Virtually speaking, of course. We are interviewing screenwriter and film journalist Tom Jolliffe. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. He writes for Flickering Myth magazine, and he's also a screenwriter in his own right. And so he has written over I think he's gotten 30 screenplays written. And one of his very latest has been made into a movie called When Darkness Falls. So this is a very interesting interview in the fact that because you don't see that too often, because it's walking a fine line, because when you write for a film magazine per se, you are what you write, right? You have become what you are writing about. So it's got to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting but pleasant dilemma. Obviously, Tom is a terrific writer and very well respected by Flickering Myth, as he's able to write for both, objectively, about what he watches and then about what he creates. So he'll be here in about 15 minutes. This is the first of 2 shows tonight. As you know, we will be talking about about a lot of things. The lovely Danny Inks will be here with us at 8 o'clock. And so that'll be a lot of fun too, because Danny is a powerhouse and she's just a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to meeting her. But I'm also looking forward to meeting Tom, because him and I have been friends for quite a while. I interviewed him for the blog, and I will put that interview up when I put this up, and you guys can go watch. Or read. You guys can go read what will be about our interview. I'm a little loopy today. Seems like I'm a half a step behind everybody today. So hopefully you guys will be understanding about that. Hopefully. If anybody's watching and cares to share us out, that would be awesome too. This is a early show, and a lot of people don't know that we're here this early. Like I said, we don't do very many English shows, but we are this month. This is not the first time we're heading over to the pond. Hi, Betty. How are you? Welcome to the show. I was watching your interview with Erie Frog. That was a really charming interview. Very, very charming. Thank you so much, Betty. I appreciate that. Yeah, the UK interviews, they can be a little sketchy, because a lot of people don't know that I'm doing this. Because 2 o'clock is a we're early time for me to do it, but I have done it quite a few. So, in fact, we will be going back across the pond in a couple of weeks, as we're interviewing 2 other fine English actresses. We'll be interviewing Michaela Langdon on the 26th and Ellie O'Hara on the 27th. I thought your interview was a lot of fun. Definitely. I thought you asked some really good questions. I mean, he seemed very happy to be there. You guys had a real nice chemistry together. You have a real easy way of asking questions. So, like I said yesterday, I think that's something you could do. I think it's a lot of fun. I think it's a lot of fun when people interview other YouTube creators, because and I noticed that one thing that you did is you kept it short. You kept it to an hour and a half, and that was what I really noticed first and foremost. It seemed very professional. An hour and a half is about as long as you can go before you start losing interest. You run the risk of that, and also for replay purposes, right? So I do my best to get out of there for YouTubers in about an hour and a half as well. Though sometimes I do run over. It's very easy to run over with YouTubers because you guys are friends, and when you're with your friends, you just get to talking, and before you know it, you're into the soup for 3 hours. And unless you're editing it down to the bone, 3 hours it's a great interview, but replay it's going to be tough. People see that 3 hour long window and they go like, I don't know if I have 3 hours to waste, which is a shame because I mentioned before that I think that what we do here, the beautiful thing about doing interviews on this format is, one, you can visually see it, but two, you can listen to it like a podcast, which is why I call this a podcast, because you can listen to this. You don't have to watch it. Yeah, well, you know what though? That's okay. That's something you'll slowly get to, you'll get to, you have to adjust to. Like I happens to me too. Sometimes I find myself, you know, I've noticed that, I notice sometimes I overrun, so I'm working a little bit hard on that to bring it back a little bit, because I want people to come watch. I want people to either watch it or I want people to listen to it for sure. But that's fine with a YouTuber. Yeah, you can go over a little bit because you're friends. It's a little different when you're interviewing a stranger, I think, because especially when you tell them that I do a show between 75 minutes to 90 minutes, but then they're not there for 2 hours. They get a little bit grumpy sometimes. Hey, Jaden, how are you? Luckily, I've never had anybody complain about that here. I've never had anybody come back at me and say, "Yeah, you kept me way too long." No one's ever done that before, so I'm grateful for that, but I'm also very aware of that too. But I always give the YouTubers a little bit more of a bubble. Now, solo with Tom. Tom's going to be very interesting because Tom has two different lines that we could go down to. We got Tom, who's also a screenwriter, and then we got Tom, who's also the film critic, film writer. So that's going to be, that's when you get someone who who's multi-talented like that, there's a lot of ground to cover in not a very long time. So, all right, I got four people here. If you hit the thumbs up, that'd be awesome. I want to say thank you yesterday for another outstanding interview with actress producer Devaney Penn. That was an amazing show yesterday. Very grateful for her to come out and hang out with us. Um, what a beautiful setting for an interview, though, right? Santa Monica Beach, sitting there, not that far away from the water crashing down. I mean, what a great setting for an interview. Um, and I just saw that the new movie is about ready to. I think it's going to come out it's in August. It's called Frost, and I saw her partner Brandon on social media. He showed a copy of the disc, so it is available for pre-order, and I will be putting that link down in her description box after this interview is over. I have not done that yet. I have not done her description box yet, but I will do that after this show is over with. All right. So we are rampaging into toward the end of the week. We have Danny Inks tonight at 8 o'clock. Then tomorrow we have the lovely Haley, aka Gory B Movie, will be here with us at 9 p.m. 9 p.m. special start, West Coast start, because Haley was on the West Coast, and we will talk to her when she gets home and settled in at 9 p.m. Then I will let you know what's going on with us. Me and Al Licard, we are making a road trip Saturday. We are making a road trip to the House of Horrors. Hi, Jamie. How are you? Uh, we are making a road trip to House of Horrors next Saturday at 7 p.m. 7 p.m. House of Horrors. We're going to be in there to help Stephen and Boom kick off Polonia Week, Mark Polonia Week. So we're going to be kicking that off on their channel this Saturday. And then on Sunday, they come back over to our channel. On Sunday, we'll be over to Al Licard's channel. Oh, all right. I hope hopefully so. Hopefully lots of drunken footage. uh, and then Sunday, like I said, we're over at Al Licard's channel, and we're inviting Steven and Christy to come hang out with us and talk a little bit more Polonia. And then we kick off Polonia Week, which includes a live To Be Tuesday, live To Be Tuesday at 10:15 with Al and Steven and special guest Greta Volkova as they do a live talk and watch of Sharkenstein next Tuesday. If you haven't seen Sharkenstein, you owe it to yourself to experience Sharkenstein, all things Sharkenstein. It's pretty amazing, actually. It's a lot of fun. Hobbs Horrors in the house. Hey, Pete, how are you, sir? Glad you are here. Glad you are here. Uh, 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 Thank you so much. Those who can help, those who care to share us out, that'll be awesome. I appreciate that. The more, the merrier. On the 17th, we will be me and Al after we'll also be talking about Return to Splatter Farm on the Midnight Society. Um, Tomorrow night, oh, I should mention this now that Hobbs is here. Tomorrow night after, actually during the show, well, 10 o'clock. We'll be heading toward the end game we'll be in toward the. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work out. All I know is tomorrow night at 10 o'clock on Hobbs Horse Channel, they're kicking off a deep dive of A Nightmare on Elm Street. They're going to be watching and talking about all things Nightmare on Elm Street, including the remake. So I'm looking forward to that. I know by me and Al, we know that from our own experience doing the Friday the 13th series that doing a dive on a franchise is a lot of fun. It really truly is, and so especially for a franchise like Friday the Third Nightmare on Elm Street, because there's so many different things. There's so many. I mean, there's a lot more. Actually, I think it's a lot more deeper series because there's a lot more going on in a sense, more than any other franchise. To tell you the truth, because there's so many different angles that you can look at Freddy Krueger. Um, the boogeyman, truly a nightmare being. Yes, he's a one-liner. They made him a little bit, a little bit of a stand-up comedian. Um, the various traps that he uses, to get his victims, how some of the traps really did affect their lives. I mean, in a sense, you could almost say this is sort of like a precursor to Saw, in a sense. Some of the things that Freddy had them do or trap them in within, on a supernatural level. So they're going to be kicking off Nightmare on Elm Street tomorrow night on Hobbs Horse Channel. Uh, uh, they think they're going to draw a hat to see which one. I don't know, Hobbs. Really, that'd be interesting. Uh, that'll be interesting. Oh, and Kentucky Kruger on the 28th. On the 28th. Oh, yeah. Okay, let's go get our friend, writer and screenwriter, film writer and screenwriter, Tom Jolliffe. I do hope I'm saying that right. Let's go get him.
So,
Hey, sir.
Hello.
Yeah, am I saying your name right?
It's Jolliffe, so it sounds less
Jolliffe.
fancy. Yeah,
Oh, okay, Jolliffe. Okay,
yeah,
that's still pretty fancy. Uh, we were just chopping it up a little bit about our friend Hobbs Horrors in the chat. I don't know. Hopefully, you can see the chat. He does a podcast show on Thursdays called The Midnight Hour, and they are preparing to do their first dive into a franchise. They're going to be covering the Nightmare on Elm Street series. Um,
yeah.
to cover a series like that, would you recommend doing it in order, or should you do it randomly?
Um, See, I would probably do it in order myself.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
but I'm a big fan of that franchise, so that sounds exciting.
You know, we just did one. Me and my buddy Al. We also have a Sunday show ourselves called the Midnight Society. We're sort of related. Um, and we did the Friday the 13th movies in order, and it was really interesting. It was a lot of fun. I did not realize that there was so much information out there that I hadn't heard of. Uh, I just when I thought about it before, because I've seen other people do deep dives, and I've always been like, what can these share? I mean, it's been out there for 40 years. I mean, every single
Yeah,
ounce of information has been wrung dead from the horse, right? Well, that was my attitude until we started actually doing it. And then all of a sudden I found out a lot of things I did not know about. I did not know about the franchise. I did not know that about the actors or the directors or producers. So it was a whole new world for us. You know, for me, it's as far as it's like watching Friday the 13th all
yeah.
over again for the first time. Hello, Echo. How are you? See, we got our friend Betty J. Gathers is in the house. Hobbs is here. Hi, Annabelle. How are you? How are you? Our good friend Echo's here. And Jamie Hart is here. And Jaden's here. And Pete's here. Oh, so we got a few people here for our early afternoon show. This is really
That's good
good.
to hear. Good to hear.
Yeah. So how you been?
Yeah, I've been good. I've just been really busy, really. Um,
Yeah.
Constantly writing, so there's always some project that I've got on. Um, I've just been offered another one as well, so as soon as I finish one, I'm going to be moving on to another, and I've still got other things to go back to as well. So yeah, just perpetual motion at the moment with screenwriting.
Now, now, if I'm not mistaken, you're also still on staff for Flickering Myth, right?
Yeah, yeah, I still try and do as much as I can when I get a chance. So mostly kind of essential lists and feature pieces. Not so many reviews these days, but yeah, more opinion pieces and essentials lists. But I try and do between sort of 5 to 10 every month.
Now, I guess the first question obviously is this: is like, do you see, you being a not only a film writer and a critic, but you're also a screenwriter. So how do you keep your objectivity?
Um, well, what I tend to do, I don't tend to do reviews so much anymore because um, I don't see the point in it. And I think most of my articles come from a positive perspective anyway. So I try to look at the positive aspects of what I'm doing a piece on. So it's always like the best of lists or essential lists rather than the worst of lists and things like that. But I always think that even if I do a review, as long as I'm constructive and respectful, then it's okay. And I've had feedback from filmmakers even when I've given them you know set, I guess, overall negative reviews, but I've always pointed out the positive aspects of the film, which I think people appreciate, even if the overall score isn't quite what they had in mind. They appreciate a bit of constructivity, and yeah, I'm the same really. If I read a review of one of my films, as long as it's constructive, if they didn't like it, that's fair enough because everyone has their own opinions. But as long as they, you don't want a like a 3-word review on IMDb that just says it's a big pile of whatever. Yeah, so constructive is good.
I agree. For the most part about that, I agree with that. I mean, constructive is good. Like for some directors, there's some directors that are bulletproof. It doesn't
Yeah,
matter what they do. That they're I mean, they can make some really shitty films, and you
yeah,
can sit there and say, yeah, there's some really shitty films, but they're bulletproof because their fans don't really care. They're still going to come out there and watch it anyway. Um,
yeah,
and then you're right. Then you do got some that are they are a little thin-skinned, because they're sensitive, and and they will come. I know that they have come after some people with their
yeah,
reviews. Um, Luckily, knock on wood, that has never happened to me. That's never happened to me. I have
yeah,
never had anybody come at me on any level for a review. Um, I've lost a company who won't send me stuff to review anymore, but I'm not really bothered by that. They knew what they were getting into when they came up to me, when they
yeah,
asked me to. Yeah. Um, but I mean, every movie, I look at it. I always try to at least try to find one vein of something good.
yeah,
It could be a acting performance. It could be a set design. It could be it could be the budget's not there, but you see what they're trying to do with it.
yeah,
As long as you go from movie to movie. I mean, you've seen this from director to director. You follow their career. Like here's my first movie. Here's my second movie. Here's my third movie. And you're watching these movies, and as long as you see that director, if he or she is moving up the ladder as far as perfecting their craft, I don't care if the movie's not all that good, as long as it's better than the one beforehand, right? And you can sit there and you can
yeah.
write,
You can see that progression. Yeah,
right, and you can talk about that, and you can really give credit for that.
yeah,
Um, some directors, as soon as they get $216 Canadian, they're making a really bad shark movie. They're not putting any effort into it. Uh,
yeah,
um, so and those are frustrating. As a journalist, you're sitting there and you're sitting there and you're watching this, and it's like that could be their. I mean, that could be as far as they could go, right? I mean, there are some directors. They can only go so far, and that's all they're going to be able to go. They just won't be able to advance past that. Um, and then there's some that that will just sooner or later they're going to shed the skin and take off. They're going to start flying. Um,
yeah.
what's
You never
what
know. It's just luck sometimes as well.
what
With who's backing you.
let me ask you this before we get into the interview, but um, what's one director? Give me two directors that you noticed that you followed their careers from the beginning, and you watched them go from their first short film per se to their first feature film and taken off, and it really blossomed.
Um, it's uh, it's difficult to say really. I think I've worked with a lot of directors myself where um, they've progressed and they're gradually getting better and better. So I've worked with a couple of producers and directors like Louisa Warren and Scott Jeffrey. So they've been in the feature business for since about 2016, 17. And it started off making films for like £10,000 and very rough around the edges because they're learning how to shoot within 10 days and even less sometimes, so 7-8 days. And it's just learning how to shoot really quickly and deal with issues that you're going to deal with at that budget level, people not turning up, and a lot of multitasking, but they've really shown a lot of progression in their careers, and they get better with every film.
Yeah, I mean the UK. I mean, you see this up close much more than I have, but the UK has some amazing talent, both behind the camera and in front of it. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
they
definitely.
really,
Yeah,
they really do. I mean, it's sort of like Canada too. Canada is just per capita. I dare say Canada might be the most talented country in the world when it comes down to producing directors and actors and crew. I mean, for their small size, they pump out some amazing
yeah.
talent.
I
Uh,
mean, it's always been a great place where filmmakers, particularly kind of slightly lower budget, have always flocked to Canada for shooting in Vancouver and places like that. So it's um it's always been a good location. I think the UK is now kind of seeing this kind of indie boom that they've had in the US for quite a while. Um, and ironically, because the US market is kind of like the main draw, the big sort of, it's like the center, it's the sun, and everything else gravitates around it. Uh, so most of these kind of UK based very small studios and indie producers are working vicariously through US distributors. So everything is still kind of being governed by the US, but now we're seeing a lot of these companies like Champ Dog and Proportion who are making films for little money, very tight turnarounds, but they're doing what they've been doing in America for the last 20 years since digital came in, really. So the UK is really starting to sort of kick off with a lot of young indie talent.
it's nice to see. It really is nice to
Yeah,
see them. And you said, I mean, how long have you worked for Flickering Myth?
um, coming up 12 years now.
Now, so
Yeah,
you were doing that before you were screenwriting, so you were sitting right. I mean, is that
yeah,
so? You mean you mean you're sitting back there 12 years ago, and you're not really seeing that much in the UK as far as the indie films and being seen, and the one thing
yeah,
I really
not so much. No,
the
I
one
mean it
thing
would
I
sort of be, you'd get sort of films that were shot for maybe £200,000, and then below that, not really anything.
yeah.
So yeah, and everything was kind of governed by British films were tend to be made up a lot of crime dramas and things like Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, and they only really do well and get picked up in the UK. Whereas I think what's different in the last sort of 7-8 years now is all these companies that are basically being hired by distributors to make these films, and then they're making them essentially predominantly for the US market, but to go worldwide.
Yeah, I don't. You mentioned about the U.S. being the sun. I I don't. Over here, it seems to be now where, like filmmakers here, the big studios, they're hoping to break even here, and they're
Yeah,
putting all their eggs in the basket for China's market. Like, they'll make a $200 million movie here, hope they can get close to $200 million here, but
yeah,
hope to make any profit at all in the Chinese market, because
yeah,
that seems to be the number one movie going crowd now in the world. I mean, they go see more movies than anybody.
yeah. And I think up until maybe, I think that's changing now after COVID. I think the relations aren't quite as good, and then
You
the
know,
Chinese market now aren't picking up as many films. So I think now American studios are going to have to recalibrate how they think, and really kind of, I think they're going to have to be more outward thinking and not be aiming too much to just specific markets and try and get it wide reaching. But I think Top Gun Maverick has done very well, and it's not even come out in China yet. So it maybe there's a bit of a turnaround happening.
yeah, I don't think it's going to get a shot over there. I thought maybe it might
No,
be just based on Tom Cruise's name, but they have said, nah, we're good.
yeah,
Um, So I
Yeah,
mean, as big as the box office was over here, it could have probably been double maybe double if they would have got a China release.
yeah,
So
possibly, yeah. But I think
maybe,
also at the same time, the Chinese movie making market, they're investing a lot in their own films now, so they've got less need to kind of bring over the blockbusters, and they're kind of riffing on the American style of filmmaking anyway now. And yeah, they're just making their own thing, which is fair enough. So they know what they like over there.
uh, let's see. Hobbs mentions the Screen 5 motion picture feature has made over $100 million. Yeah, I mean, horror is always going to be the money makers for a studio, right? I mean, that's pretty much playing this. I would think that I think probably the best two movies, the easiest two movies to do as far as profitability goes, would probably be horror, and I would actually say probably something for kids movies. You can do that with smaller budgets,
Yeah,
and the returns are much greater. Uh, so let's go back to let's go back to the beginning of your screenwriting. Here you are, Flickering Myth. Um, I guess we could go back a little bit further. Is how you got how did you get your start as a film journalist?
I think a few years before Flickering Myth, I was just starting out reviewing films on IMDb. So I I was quite interested in doing it. It was more like a hobby, um, and I just enjoyed doing it. So I just write reviews on IMDb. Then I started, um, pitching around a few reviews. I got a couple on Ain't It Cool and Movie Hole, and then eventually I contacted Gary at Flickering Myth and said, I've got an idea for an article. Would you be interested in putting it up? And obviously he was. And then I've just been consistent from then on.
Um, yeah, I didn't know about the IMDb. I've never written an article on it. Like I've never written an interview like on it.
Yeah,
I always did it from the blog, and then I went over there and I found out that I could submit my review onto the movie. So when you go in there and see external reviews, you can see next thing you know, you see my name there, and it's like
yeah,
there's some out there that have some very respected websites and journalists and whatnot, and we're like, and I'm able to put my words up, in the same list with some of those folks. It's an interesting. I don't consider myself a professional at all. I just don't. I just basically it's just an opinion. I know
yeah,
some writers they can get into it really well. They can break down a movie and constructive wise or go deep into which I always was just like whenever I saw someone like take a movie like Casablanca and break it down, like, well, Rick must have been feeling this and Ingrid must have been feeling that, and look how they look at each other. A lot of that I just feel. I mean, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but sometimes I feel someone who's writing like that, I don't necessarily know they really know what they're writing about because they're not the screenwriter. Like I could
yeah,
never presume to take When Darkness Falls to watch the movie and then sit there and say, well, the protagonist is trying to do this, and if you notice the authority figures coming over here, it's like you're describing a chess game, but you're not
yeah.
playing it. You're looking at it, but you're not really playing it. So I always felt like I don't think they could ever write about that. You can't write what the screenwriter is saying or doing until you talk to the screenwriter, and then they may tell you might be right, but they could more often than not probably tell you you don't know what you're saying. um, I mean, is that
Yeah.
right? I mean, have you ever written a critique about a movie and gotten deep into that, and then have someone come to you and say, "Yeah, that's a really good article, but that's not exactly what I was trying to say."
I've never had like a direct response. I mean, I've written some, not as much of a deep dive as some people do, but I've done some analysis on some films. Or, I think you when you put a film out there, it kind of becomes in some way like the public domain. So, cinema is that kind of thing where you can put your own interpretation on it. You pay for the movie, you buy the movie, and then you know, you can, to an extent, you can put some kind of, thought into it. I think there are some films that invite you to do that, which are, some films like 2001 say, because it's quite mysterious and enigmatic, and it's quite ambiguous. So, some films do invite that, and they, some filmmakers do like you to kind of, you know, try and provide your own kind of view on what the film is about. But yeah, I can see why, some people aren't entirely into it, or why a screenwriter might think, well, you're talking nonsense. That's not what I had in mind. But then you've also got to consider, that the screenwriter hands it off, then the director takes it, and he kind of alters the screenwriter's vision a bit more. And then the editor alters the director's vision a bit more. Producers might come in and then alter the vision a bit more. So, it's all kind of gone through this system anyway, which might have, by the time it's hit the screen, it might have lost what the screenwriter originally intended.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with that. I do. It's just because I'm actually just thinking about. I know there's people that are been like, two of the big horror movies are coming down, and it's interesting watching the fan bases try to break down the movie, trying to guess everything about the movie. And it's like you're sitting there, I don't know if it's part of it, like that's part of the fun, like, well, what do you think this will happen, or do you think this will happen, or this is, again, it's like speculation and guessing and theory, so to speak. Is that something that's more to do out of fun, or you think fans are really want to be in the movie that much that sometimes they put themselves into those shoes to make themselves closer to the movie?
Yeah, I think it's probably a little bit of both, really. So obviously, I would never go into that much of a deep dive where I'm analyzing, frame by frame or even scene by scene. But some people do, particularly with very kind of fan-driven stuff like, then it could be Star Wars or horror franchises, as you say. So yeah, I think I would never go that deep into a film, because I think sometimes you almost forget that you have to, the first thing about a film is that you sit there, you watch it and enjoy it. And if you're so focused on splitting everything up every second and analyzing every frame and what's in the frame, I think sometimes you can forget to just sit down and enjoy the film.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with that too. Like I don't. I mean, I like movies. I mean, there's some movies I really like, but I don't want to know everything, every detail about it. We could sit here and talk about When Darkness Falls, and I could squeeze you for every bit of information about the movie, and you would tell me about it. But then when I watched it, I wouldn't be surprised to be sitting there going like, oh, I knew that. Oh, I know this. Oh, I know that's going to happen. It's just like, where's the
Yeah.
joy? I like the mystery of it. As a writer, as a journalist, did you ever have to be careful of that in your own self, as far as getting involved with a movie and maybe start writing about it a little bit too heavy, and then bring yourself back, or like, wait a minute, I don't want to show all that off. I want to leave some mystery for the moviegoer. And have
Yeah.
you applied that to your own screenwriting? Like when you do your screenplays, do you sort of, how do you approach the screenplay where, I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, you don't want to do that as a fan, but as a screenwriter, it's all the attention toward your screenplay, the movie that you're writing, is that, do you see that when you see that coming at your movie, are you happy about it? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's two different. Okay.
I think what it is, I've always really liked ambiguous films. So, I kind of like writing ambiguous horrors and, things where there can be some, deeper meanings or hidden layers. And I kind of like those films where audiences are made to kind of work a little bit, and, they're made to kind of give their own ideas and thoughts on what might happen. I mean, there was this great film from Korea called Burning. About 4 years ago, it came out just before Parasite came out, actually. But it's similar to When Darkness Falls in as much as it focuses on a disappearance. But the film kind of has this ambiguity throughout. So the director purposely feeds you some piece of information that says, well, this might have happened and this guy might have done this. But then he'll feed something that is, conflicts that piece of information. And both things are, feasible. So it's up to you to decide, well, that is feasible, this is feasible. Which one do I think, is the truth? So I like films like that, and I like to write them. But from my perspective, in terms of what I get hired to do, distributors don't tend to like ambiguity. They like things wrapped up. So they like things fairly kind of simple to the point. So, he did it, we know where the person is, and, we know, everything's kind of tied up, basically. So I don't essentially get to do entirely what I want to do, but I mean, I'll have to produce them myself if I want to do them.
Right. So, what was your first experience with screenwriting? Was that something that you had already experimented with before you became a journalist, or was this something that came to you after you became a journalist?
I'd experimented when I was a bit younger. My first kind of experiments in sort of screenwriting was I would do my own versions of like sitcoms. So famous British sitcoms, I'd do my own version of a script. It would usually mean recycling a load of their jokes, and it would be pretty much theirs anyway. But that's how I kind of started. So that was how I would initially got into sort of writing, exchanges of dialogue and things like that. Then I kind of I did a few short films with my brother. And they ended up being things that, we just made and no one else would ever see them. So the first sort of film that I did kind of independently and actually produced and released was a short film. That came after a few years of kind of trying to get things out there. I nearly got a couple of features picked up, but then the companies kind of imploded just before they took the films on. So out of that frustration, that kind of pushed me into producing something myself as well. I think, sometimes if you're struggling to get your stuff out there, then you should look at, getting your career in your own hands and producing it yourself. Even if you're, scraping collaborators together and doing it for no money.
Now, did you? I know this might be a tough question, but that's what we're about, right? You know this is the question I have to ask. That's one good thing about when I interview folks like yourself, Tom, is like I can cut loose, with questions, because it's like,
Yeah.
I know these are the same questions you would be asking. If you were interviewing a screenwriter, a journalist, you'd be asking the same questions. And that's fun, right? That's the best part about being a journalist is or interviewer is you get to ask the really good questions.
Yeah.
Did you ever use your contacts for help when you started screenwriting? Contacts that you made through the magazine? Did you ever call anybody up there and say, hey, I want to bend your ear on something?
I didn't particularly. I mean, Gary, the editor, has always been quite good that he will, if I need to sort of do a little bit of promotion on something I've put out. I mean, he's done a news piece for When Darkness Falls and a few of my other films like Renegades and a few films that I've had out before. So he's always been, very willing to do that, and that's something I appreciate. But I've never kind of, aside from that, gone out of my way to kind of contact anyone. I don't know if I even have that many contacts, really.
So I want to talk a little bit about a little bit more about your start. Then we'll get into some of the movies that you've done. You've written some really fun movies, and some of them I'm looking at, and I know like Scarecrow's Revenge. I know that that must have been part oh, hold on, I know this person, Louisa Warren.
Yeah.
He did it, yeah. Um, Okay, let's talk about that because that was fun. Um, how did you meet her and how did you get involved in that series?
Yeah, that was my first release, I think. I can't remember whether it was the first one I wrote for Louisa, but it was the first one that came out. But basically, I contacted a company, someone that Louisa knows. So there's a couple of companies, and then Scott Jeffrey, he kind of gravitates between three or four companies. So one of them, they were looking for writers, and I responded to an ad and I pitched an idea. They liked the idea. In the end, they didn't go for that one because they just couldn't get any interest from the distributor. But they kind of recommended me to Louisa, who came and said, I've got this idea for a film. We want to do Scarecrows versus Vikings. Would you like to write it? And so I said, yeah. Because I love those kind of movies. You know what you're kind of going to get. It's not going to be, you're not going to win an Oscar for it, and you're not going to get many nice reviews. But I think they're fun to write, so I was quite keen to do that.
Was she yeah, because I watched one of her films, and it was a little tough. It was a little tough in the center, you know. But it was I mean, I mean, there's some good scares, there's some good screams, but some of the logic that was there was missing, and it was very hard to watch it because you're going like, well, why aren't you just doing this? It's just such a simple little step, like, why aren't
Yeah,
you doing that? But, and it's like, and then and it's sort of frustrating because you're sitting there going like, okay, you get in your car. I mean, this guy, you got to, you know what I'm talking about. You get it, because you don't know if it's just bad direction or is it bad writing, and it's like, okay, you get in the car to get away from the scarecrow. Okay, what are you gonna do? I'm gonna go drive up the driveway back to the house. I'm gonna go back into the
yeah,
house instead of backing your ass out and going down the road, and as fast
yeah,
as you can. And you're sitting there and you're going like,
yeah.
it sort of takes you out of it,
It's
of a movie like that.
difficult sometimes. Yeah, it can be logistics. So it could be a simple case of, they've got a location booked and they need to film most of it there. So back to the location. Some things change last minute. I think there was another film I did with Louisa, which was one of the Tooth Fairy films. I did the second and third one in the franchise. And on the second one, there was these three kind of elaborate death scenes, and a makeup artist didn't show up the morning they were supposed to. So they had to very quickly rearrange, and just because it was, they couldn't really, account for that or get anyone else in to replace them. They essentially had to change these three elaborate death scenes, and with a complete lapse of logic, the Tooth Fairy gets a gun from somewhere and just shoots three people at the same time. So
No,
it's
no,
just that thing, you've got 7 days to shoot a film. You're not going to have money to reshoot anything, so you
right.
kind of have to bite the bullet sometimes, and it's difficult with those kind of budgets. But I'm impressed that they managed to get things out that are sort of coherent sometimes, where you're shooting in 7-8 days.
Now, if you're as a screenwriter, if he had written, was that one of your stories that they did this to?
Yeah,
Okay, so
because
as a screenwriter,
they on the morning of the shoot, I think they said, "Oh, we got this emergency. Can you very quickly rewrite these sequences where three people die in different places quite elaborately? Can you rewrite it that the scarecrow, the Tooth Fairy, just shoots 3 of them in the same place.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
Now, I mean, as a both, right? I mean, your brain must be working overtime. There's half of you as a screenwriter that's sitting there going like, Jesus, really? And
yeah.
there's part of you as the film critic going, Jesus, really? you know.
Well, I think, yeah, some of these the low budget horrors, I just have to separate myself as a critic anyway. I put my critic brain very much to bed.
Yeah, that's got to be tough though. I just can't imagine me walking that line though. You're sitting there, you're writing a screenplay, you're going like, hell yeah, I'm on a roll here, and you got a great screenplay, and you're going like, all right, you know, and then all of a sudden before you give it in, you all of a sudden you pull it back there and going like, well, let me sit there and read this again. But on the film side, the film critic side, oh, wait a minute, why is he doing that? Let me go back there and do a rewrite. Because all of a sudden you get caught up going like, let me go ahead and rewrite this so it makes more sense. Make him a little bit more badass. Because the critics might not like what I'm writing here. That's just got to be like a mixing bowl. I have
I
nothing
mean,
but
yeah,
I have nothing but respect for you. I mean, I could see you doing one or the other, but doing both, hats off, because I couldn't do that.
yeah. I mean, I definitely keep them independent. So, sometimes I know that I have to fit something around a location, even if it might mean, you've got to bend logic a little bit. But I think, I guess you can almost get away with that a little bit more in horror than other genres. And then the sort of the low budget horror films that I do nowadays tend to be, it'll be a one draft thing where I hand it off, and then they have to essentially then mold the script into a shooting script based on what locations they can still get, who's coming in. So things do change a fair bit. I remember I did a film called Witches of Amityville, which I really liked, actually. I liked how that one turned out. But there's a few moments in it where it didn't quite live up to my screenplay. So there's one moment where they have this line of dialogue that a character says, "What? Let's go into the Great Hall, the Grand Hall," or something like that. And they kind of walk through, and they walk into this very small dining room. And I think, it didn't sort of occur to anyone to just change that line to something else, because my idea of what the location was going to be was a little bit different to what it ended up being. And then there's another one where the same character says, "Fetch the chalice," and someone brings in this small kind of black cereal bowl. So, fetch the cereal bowl. It's just
Now,
little things like that. Yeah.
are you on set for most of the movies that you write? I mean, I know, I mean, are you there to watch how they do it, or do you collaborate with another screenwriter? Like sometimes you say like you'll turn it in, and then does anybody ever come behind you to tighten it up or clean it up or add a little anything to it, or is it totally you and you're on set?
So I've never really been on set, so there's never really particularly been a need to. Because on the low budget horror films, because I've done slightly bigger films since, and that means my price has gone up. They can't really afford me, so I've got kind of like a one draft deal basically. So I hand off the draft. That gives them enough of a blueprint to work from. So, between when I hand it off, it could be they film in 2 weeks, or it could be they film in, 6 to 8 months.
Right.
But any changes they make they tend to be kind of logistical things, or it might be that I've had a recent film where there's 2 guys and 2 girls that get lost in these tunnels, and they have to get saved by Van Helsing, of all people. But they changed it in casting, so it was 4 girls instead of 2 guys, 2 girls. So that's just a simple change, but that can change the dynamics of 2 of the characters quite a lot. So yeah, but I haven't seen that one. I'm quite interested to see how that one turned out.
Sorry about that. I got a hangnail right there, and I got caught it on a piece of cloth and pulled my skin off. Ouch. Um, let's see. Jamie's mentioning, is this related to Darkness Falls with the Tooth Fairy? I do remember that movie, Darkness Falls.
Yeah,
I don't think that's the same world, but I do know what she's talking about. They made a movie called Darkness
yeah.
Falls
No,
about the Tooth
I mean
Fairy.
it's ironic because I have done two fairy films, but no, When Darkness Falls is completely different. So it's more in the line of breakdown or the
Um,
vanishing.
uh, Hobbs is asking you a question here, and I'm going to let you answer this without saying anything about it. But Tom, have you ever watched A Dark Song? If so, what are your thoughts?
I've never seen it.
Wait, you never saw The Dark Song?
No, I've not seen it. So what's that one?
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I would have thought that would have came across your desk. It's actually a director named Liam Gavin. He's based in Ireland, and he wrote a movie back in 2017 called A Dark Song. It was his first feature film. It's absolutely positively brilliant. Um, it's one of the
Yeah,
best movies I've ever seen in my life. Um, but there's been I mean, but that's part of the renaissance that we were talking about earlier about the UK filmmaking. I mean,
yeah.
there is a
And
lot of
Ireland is probably the best of the UK at the moment from what they're producing, I think.
yeah,
So
they're
yeah,
doing that. If I'm not mistaken, are they not? They did the Game of Thrones up there. Are they
yeah.
doing that? Are they doing? I could be wrong about this. Are they doing the Lord of the Rings up there too, or is that New Zealand?
I have a feeling they might be, yeah, or at least
Okay,
some of it.
because I know there. I also know that they're filming a Wheel in Time up. I do believe in the UK or Ireland. And we're sorry about that. Um, uh, let's see. Yeah. Um, so let's talk about a little bit something too, because this is something I want to, you as a film journalist, you do have some influence in this, and this is the power of the press. And I know the press is pretty powerful in Britain. I mean, what you write carries a lot more weight there than someone here would. Um, how do you think it's fair to say, and I guess this could also apply to your screenwriting, and I'll touch about that in a minute. Do you think there's a bottleneck in the UK as terms of developing talent? Like a certain talent will only get to a certain level, but it never gets pushed to the top because everything's so bottlenecked. Like the same actors get the same roles over and over and over.
Yeah, very much so. I think the UK is, I mean, it's not just actors, I think it's filmmakers as well. You know, we're a small place, and what I've noticed, it's a very small world, even in the film, you know, I've got so many films and there's so many people that have been linked between films, you know, that it's just like a spider's web. And, you know, someone I've worked with on one film has worked with someone else that I've worked with on another. Um, and this is particularly true in the UK. So many people I've worked with through the UK companies, you know, they're all intermingling, working with, you know, on things separately. Um, but I think in terms of the top end, you know, all the where the main money goes in the UK, you know, so many of our kind of bigger actors come out to the States because that's where the money is. The ones that kind of remain here, they kind of monopolize certain TV roles. And
Yeah,
a lot of these kind of people get their start because of where they went to school or who they know. Um, Same with directors; they get roles in, you know, on TV shows and things like that because of, you know, where they schooled or who they know. And I guess it's true in America to an extent.
but
Um,
not nearly as much as it is
no,
there. Not
yeah.
as much.
So
I
I
mean,
mean, it's
over
very
here.
difficult. Yeah, it's very difficult to say, you know, where the next Robert Rodriguez, you know, the British answer to Robert Rodriguez or even Quentin Tarantino or, um, you know, those kind of indie directors. Um, it's hard because, you know, you have to kind of do the best you can and find your small kind of pocket. And then, once you're there, you've got to try and, work your way up slowly, I think. And, by getting a good reputation and, I've been fortunate that people have come back to me, consistently from, 7 or 8 companies now. Which means I must be doing something right, but it also helps, at least getting some kind of a reputation of being reliable.
Yes, that's important.
Yeah.
Now,
but I mean, in terms of the big kind of positions and the big opportunities, they kind of get monopolized because, so much of the money in the UK gets funneled into maybe, 50 to 100, films a year. And then everything below that is people kind of almost doing guerrilla style filmmaking.
Let's see, we got a nice comment here from James from Damn Good Coffee Time. He wouldn't have known about this panel if it wasn't for Jamie. Hi there, thank you for coming in, James. And he says hi to you, Tom. This is intriguing to me, as I've always been fascinated by film production. Oh, this is the perfect channel for that. That's for sure. We have talked to a lot of filmmakers, that's for sure. So now, has this ever been something you wrote about as a writer for Flickering Myth? Have you ever tackled something like this? Like, where's the next British star going to come out? Where's the next British, then where's the next generation of British talent coming from? Because, because right now it needs to be watered. In order to be, by my mean watered, I mean, it needs to grow. It needs to be able to do projects. It needs to see them to completion and be seen by people. And and you can't do that as every single role is being filled up by familiar faces, or that's a great story. Instead of trusting it to a new talented director, we'll just get somebody who's already done something. Look, he directed 6 episodes of Coronation Street. That's good enough for me. Put him in there.
Yeah, I mean, I've done a few things along those lines. It's not been particularly focused on the UK, although I've kind of looked at that as part of what I was covering. So I've done things on like the death of physical media, because in the UK at the moment, it's gone right down. I think, you're just about clawing onto it in the States. But in terms of the UK, most of our big supermarkets now stop selling DVDs altogether. We've got maybe one well-known chain that still kind of sells them new. And then, otherwise it's, it has second-hand shops that you get your DVDs at. And obviously those are old and, second-hand. So they're not being produced so much. Yeah. So the market's gone right down. And from, even the first few films that I made, I would get UK DVD releases. But I've not had one for probably the last 18 months now, maybe 4 or 5 releases now that, if I want to get a DVD for it as a keepsake, I've got to get one from the States or from Europe.
Yeah, that's actually commonplace. Shockingly so. I have talked to many directors. I remember the first time I talked to a director I was talking to, Dees Muse, and he directed a movie called Molly, co-directed a movie called Molly, and him and I were talking because I reviewed the film, and I said, I really loved the Blu-ray. I like the fact that you guys did a commentary on there and everything else. And he goes, "Oh, it came out on a Blu-ray?" And I'm going, "Yeah." Well, didn't you get a copy?
Yeah.
No, I haven't. I never got a copy. I'm like, I don't know I didn't know what to say, because I'm going like, I got sent a copy to review. You made the damn movie and you didn't get a copy? It's just like,
yeah.
What?
I've never had a free copy either.
It's just blows my mind. It blows my mind. Yeah, you're right about the physical media aspect of it. Now, when you do your screenwriting, No, like because we're talking about Darkness Falls again. Um, do you write with specific actors or actresses in mind, in hopes of influencing them being casted? Because I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not sure how much influence a screenwriter has in casting. I mean, I know
Yeah,
you can write a type, like, he was like the gentleman was like 6'1", 180, dark hair, blue eyes.
yeah,
You can write a description per se, but I
yeah,
don't know if you could come up there to the production company and sit there and say, yeah, here's the screenplay, and I wrote down on the side who I think should play the role.
yeah. I've
You-
tried, but it doesn't work.
yeah,
No, generally, I mean, I have written for specific actors, but then that'll be because the producer will say, well, we've got, you know, like Danny Trejo. I've written for Danny Trejo in Renegades, and a few other actors. So I kind of knew once they'd been cast that I had to write for them and kind of change the script a bit. Uh, and I do love doing that because a lot of these kind of actors and actresses that I've written for in a few of the bigger films, I've you know been watching for years, so I'm a massive fan, and it's quite exciting for me to write for someone like Danny Trejo or Lee Majors. Um, so I really do enjoy that. In terms of anything I write myself, where it's say there's no cast or anyone in mind, I tend to just kind of write the roles. I might think of someone for inspiration, say, or someone a bit like this or a bit like that, but I kind of just write the characters generally.
I have a couple of questions here for you. One for our new friend James. He wrote, Tom, are you aware of the UK talent that is Paul Tanter? He is a cult figure known for not only possessing pure talent, but also acting skills on par with Peter O'Toole.
I'm not aware, but I'll have to give him a look up.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I've ever heard that name either. It could probably be a character actor. James, can you mention a couple of his movies that he's done? Yeah, I have to go
I
look
mean,
about them.
yeah, it might be that I've
That's
seen,
it.
something that he's done.
Yeah, I like to see. Yeah, if you recommend him, I'd like to see what he's done. Um, there's a lot of good actors like that that don't really just get known. Hobbs, I love Hobbs.
Yeah.
Hobbs, have you worked with or heard or met our good friend Kelly Goody Price? Kelly Goody. Uh, yeah, that is one fine actress, by the way, excellent actress. Um, have you ever
Not
watched the movie? Huh?
not so far, but I imagine at some point probably
Yeah,
if it's UK. Yeah.
she's done some independent UK films. She did a movie recently with Darren James King called April, and then she did a movie called The Ashcroft Entity and one called The Baylock Residence. Both those movies got U.S. releases over here on the home market. On the cover, her name on the cover. It was really cool,
Yeah.
supporting her. Um, I thought it was really weird. It's like you have to come all the way over here to the U.S. in order to be seen by an audience. It's like,
Yeah.
why aren't you a big star in the UK? And that goes right to back what we're talking about, that bottleneck, because she should be
Yeah.
she really should.
But the
Um,
distribution scene in the UK is almost non-existent. I mean, most of the successful films that get distributed in the UK, have to be done so by American companies.
I think there's one English one called, isn't Uncorked one of the English distributor?
I'm not too sure if they're English, but they do release a lot in the UK.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do.
Um, and then you've got ITN, they release a lot through the UK, although sometimes they'll release them through High Flyers. But there's very few, particularly on the indie level, there's a very small selection of kind of distributors over here. And dedicated release channels. So we still don't have Tubi over here. We've got the new one from Amazon, which is called Freevee. We obviously have Amazon. but we don't quite have as many avenues as they have in the US, even just for streaming releases.
Well, if you could get
Yeah,
Tubi over there, that would.
yeah,
Tubi reminds me of Amazon when Amazon was first starting out. Amazon would take anybody and everybody, and give them
yeah,
a fair wage for it too. Like, okay, we'll run your movie, and we'll give you $1 for every 50 minutes or 30 minutes watched, or
yeah,
filmmakers were making money. Back when Amazon desperate
yeah,
needed content. I got the same sense with Tubi right now. Tubi will run a lot of independent films, and not necessarily through distributors either. Sometimes they'll go strictly to the
yeah. You
filmmaker.
can go, yeah, you can direct, but I
Yeah,
think Amazon now you used to be able to direct upload to Amazon, but I don't think they're taking in indie films anymore. So to get anything on Amazon, you have to come through a distributor.
yeah, it
Yeah,
has to be a big one. Okay. Thanks for answering all these good questions, Tom. I appreciate
that's all
that.
right.
Um, let's see. Got some more questions here. Let's see. Thank you, Jamie. Okay. Oh, all right. Paul Tanter has made a multitude of films about football hooligans and gangsters. He's saying, okay. So that's the reason why we haven't really heard him, because he's not very good. I'd never heard of him at all. So I guess he's just I guess he's a UK version of Dustin Ferguson. Okay.
Yeah, they still seem to be very popular over here. The sort of football hooligan films.
Yeah, they
Soccer
are.
hooligans.
British do crime. They do crime dramas like nobody else. I got to say that. Um, let's see. James always puts together short films of his own, and they're always visually interesting and have a Lynchian film. Check out. Okay, yeah, we definitely do that, Jamie, for sure. I've been on. I think I've already been subbed to James' channel for quite a while. But yeah, we'll let everybody know about that for sure. Well, did you go to school? Did you go to college? I mean, when you were coming up before you got into anything, um, how did you get involved in becoming a writer? I mean, was that something that came to you while you were going to school? Was it
Um,
because were you influenced by anybody? Were you influenced by any other writers? Okay. Hello. Uh, Someone just stole a scene on you. Uh,
yeah.
that happens to me
Um,
once in a while too.
yeah. I did go. I studied at university. Yeah. So I studied film theory, which actually going back to what we were talking about over analyzing films and how they're put together and constructed and deeper meaning. So film theory, you're kind of encouraged to do the same, to sort of look, to sort of take away your enjoyment side of it and analyze and look into the film. So I did that, which found it quite interesting. um, I've always been a film fan, since I was younger anyway, so I would spend hours in video shops looking at all the artwork. um,
Oh,
and that was
yeah.
quite enticing to me. I'd always kind of envision one day picking up a VHS cover and seeing my name on it. um, you know, which ended up coming true, obviously on DVD rather than VHS. But I did have that pleasure of walking into a shop and seeing my name on a DVD cover.
Was
Yeah,
that the
but
best thing of going to a store back then, though? Was going inside like a Blockbuster
yeah,
or not, and just seeing all the hundreds of choices you could make, but then not knowing which one to pick, not which one, you would just get overwhelmed with what movies to watch or to pick out.
yeah, particularly in the VHS era, because I mean the artwork was a lot better. I think as soon as they started on DVDs, and then Photoshop came in, the sort of artwork was a lot less eye-catching, even on some of the bigger films where they got more money to put into it. But I used to love all the VHS artwork, and particularly the hand-drawn ones and the Drew Struzan covers. Stuff like
Yeah.
Star Wars, Blade Runner, Masters of the Universe. So things like that would always catch my eye.
Yeah, we're gonna definitely get to there, James. That's a good question. James is asking, where did you study, Tom? He went to Kent. He went to Kent Uni initially. Did you get when you were in high school? I don't think it's called high school there, right? Um, what's the equivalent in the UK for high school?
So we would call it secondary school,
Okay.
and then what we call college is like senior year in the
Okay.
States, and then what we call university is college in the US.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, did you start developing your writing skills in secondary school?
No, not really. I think I kind of I wasn't that great in school in terms of focusing, and um, I got put into a higher class in English, and I kind of never really felt inspired in the class. It wasn't until I was in college, which is essentially the high school years. I was about 20, I think, because I had a couple of years working, and I went back. And then I had quite an inspiring teacher who, really helped me bring out my, talent in writing. So, she was really kind of instrumental in me, really enjoying writing, firstly, because I'd always been quite good at it, but I'd never quite found that element of where I could enjoy it. So once I found that, then it all changed. And so I studied that for a bit. Then when I went to university, then I studied English and film.
Now, was there anybody in particular that did you read magazines when you were in, did you read different magazines, horror magazine, movie magazines, whatnot? Did you have anybody who you admire their writing style?
I used to read Empire magazine, which is quite a famous one in the UK. That was probably the one main one that I used to I guess early on when I was doing film reviews, I used to mirror my kind of style on that. So there would always be a kind of wry side to their writing. And I've always quite liked writing with a slight comical edge to what I do anyway. So yeah, I kind of mirrored my style on that. And in more recent years, in terms of like film critics, I quite like Mark Kermode from the UK. He's quite famous over here. But yeah, generally, that was the only one I really did. But I just sort of had my own style, really. I just watched a film, reviewed it, uploaded it on IMDb, and then that was kind of it until I kind of went further into Flickering Myth.
Let's see. I think James is mentioning that's very true. You have to be engaged by any subjects you're studying and feel involved. If you don't, it's too easy to just drift. Yeah, I agree with that. You know what I really like about this too is that you developed a positive style, because you must know this. If not, maybe it's just me, but I mean, the British press. When I was doing live music, I used to read a lot of British music press. Ton of it. I used to read that all the time. It was like I go to the bookstore and there'd be, be Revolver or Derringer, whatnot. And I would read a lot of the English press. And one of the things I noticed in the music press was they would take a band or an act, they would build them up. They would build them up 3, 4, 5 months. They'll build them up, and then they would chop them down. Build them up, chop them down. And it soured me a little bit on the English press for that. Now, did you ever experience that? When you were writing, did any editor come up to you and said, I want you to go ahead and maybe our Flickering Myth as a whole? Did you ever notice that happen where sometimes you would build up an actor or a director or a movie and then come in and swing it down? Or or was the British movie press, was it more focused on being positive, like your style of writing?
I think, because Flickering Myth started out as a kind of, it started out really as a blog, and it was always kind of run by kind of film nerds for film nerds. And so there was always coming from that kind of passion. And, everyone wanted to be kind of, good at what they did, but they never kind of, maybe they still don't kind of think of themselves as professional. But, it's got better and better over the years. We've got one critic on board who's part of the Chicago Critics Association. So he gets to vote on the awards for them. So, yeah, it's kind of turned into a sort of respectable publication now. But we've never we've always been fair, I think. I think we've always been, passionate about, even when it's negative things, we never sort of particularly target one particular actor or one particular director to kind of cut them down. There's never a political agenda. It always comes out of sort of opinion or passion.
Let's talk a little bit about When Darkness Falls. That's your latest movie that's coming out, right? That you've done.
Yeah. Yeah. So that came out. Yeah, that came out on the 21st of June in the US. Yeah. So that's on Amazon on VOD and DVD at the moment.
Well, let's talk about where the story came from a little bit. Where did you come up with the idea? What's your process in writing? Because you mentioned before that you sometimes are hired by companies, a gun for hire, so to speak.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the ones that you aren't hired to, the ones that you just write just to write. Now, was Darkness Falls, was that yours, or were you approached about that? And how? I mean, is your approach the same if someone hires you versus you sit down and create something of your own? Do you look at it the same way? Do you approach it the same way, or is there more excitement for your own project? Like, this is my story. I came up with the idea. I'm writing it out. Is there more excitement, or is it just, or is this just one and the same?
I think there's a little bit more excitement because it's a bit more personal to me. So yeah, When Darkness Falls, it was basically myself and my friend Nathan. We've known each other for about 10 years now, maybe a bit longer, and we've been wanting to do a film together for quite a while. We've had a couple of things that we've been planning, which probably needed a bit more money, but the main thing was that we kind of wanted to utilize the Scottish Highlands, because on film they look so great, and we wanted to kind of make the most of that. So yeah, he kind of had an idea based on quite a little known old British film called And Soon the Darkness, which is about two young British girls cycling in France and one disappears. So that was kind of our starting point, and we wanted to inject a bit more of a kind of, I guess, 90s style on top of this old 70s style kind of thriller. So we wanted to do something slow burning. We wanted to do something with a few twists and turns along the way, and really kind of just utilize the Highlands, all those great locations. So, we fleshed out the story together in terms of what we wanted and where we wanted the film to go. And then I wrote the screenplay. But compared to, say, like a Scarecrow's Revenge, I was a lot more kind of heavily involved in this one, sort of unofficial associate producer.
I can't imagine the separation between that and Scarecrow's Revenge.
Yeah, I mean, something like I'll only ever take something, if I want to do it, and if I think it's going to be fun. So any of those kind of creatures, yeah.
We got to give Louisa credit, though. Louisa Warren, the creator of the Scarecrow series, and that is the key word there, is series. She has actually made a pretty well. It must be doing something right, because I think she's made like 4 or 5 of them now, right?
Yeah, so I think there's like three Scarecrow movies. She's just done a fifth Tooth Fairy film as well.
So
Yeah, I
they're
think she,
doing something right.
yeah, I think she might have offered me the fourth one, but I said, I've done two, that's enough for me. There's only so much I can do with the Tooth Fairy. Yeah, I like it, so but you kind of run out of ideas. But with
Yeah, that's
yeah,
hard for franchises.
yeah,
That's one thing we discovered when we were doing our Friday the 13th deep dive is like, once they killed Jason, once they killed him off, and all of a sudden you got put in the corners like, okay, well, how do we bring him back? Because he killed him, he's dead. Well, we'll come
yeah,
up, we'll bring him back as a supernatural zombie. Okay, so basically it's not really the same series, so to speak. It's the same character, but the series really, because it has two distinct feels, right? It has a grounded in reality feel, and then it also has a check yourself in with popcorn and check your
yeah.
brain out if you walk in. So let's see, you got a couple more comments here. Jamie says she likes Mark Kermode, even though I often don't agree with him. Do you ever watch Rob Ager's videos?
Yeah,
He's got
I've
some
seen a
far
few of
out.
his. Yeah,
He's got
yeah,
some far out ones, but still interesting theories. And then James is sitting there going, "I find Kermode on the whole fair." Um, but Jerry, he'll slightly rate Top Gun Maverick to the rafters for some reason. But at the end of the day, he's a mainstream critic now, and I think they all feel like they have to be enthusiastic. Yeah, that's true. That's a very good point, James. I mean, hopefully, you don't feel that way. Like, when you first start writing as a journalist, you're writing what you want, how you want, and about what you want, right?
yeah,
But I guess that's the thing, the more mainstream you get, pretty soon that voice that you started off with, it runs the risk of one, basically, if you want some of the bigger actors or bigger interviews or bigger, or anything, studios want you to play fair. They want you
yeah,
to be on their side. If Top Gun Maverick was a piece of poo, they don't want you to write that. They want you to write that it was awesome. Because views. Everybody wants to read views, right? Um,
yeah.
so yeah, that's true. Um, I mean, do you think do you think Flickering Myth has maintained its identity from the very beginning? Film
Yeah,
nerds who. So I mean, if you didn't like Top Gun Maverick, you could sit down there and write, I didn't like this movie, and
yeah,
um and they would run it.
yeah,
Uh,
100%. Yeah. I mean, I've been quite lucky. There's never been an article that I've, not been able to post. So I kind of get, I'll always run something by the editor, but he's always been great in that he kind of allows me to cover as many bases as I want, and I cover like a really eclectic range of films. And I've done quite a few where I've kind of delved into how kind of manufactured and production line the MCU is at the moment, um, which I guess goes against the grain a little bit. So we can do things like that, and I think someone might have done something about Top Gun being overrated, perhaps. But I mean, I loved that film, by the way. um,
no, that's
yeah,
fine. Yeah, fine.
yeah,
I'm sure if when I'll see it, I'll be pretty damn excited to see it too. Uh, I don't, I mean, that's one other thing some writers do too. They do that devil's advocate thing. They want to be edgy, so to speak. So they'll hate everything that comes out on a mainstream studio, and that's sort of stupid too.
yeah. I mean, there's a few like that, and that's not particularly what I like. I think there's probably too many websites like that, and I mean, I might be biased, but I think Flickering Myth has always been fair, and it's always covered as basically as a diverse range of films than anyone really. I think we do everything down from the sort of kind of films that I started out making, right up to the kind of the big, most mainstream ones like Star Wars and Disney. So, we cover it all, and we cover, art house, world cinema, straight to video, B movies, everything. I get to do a lot of retrospectives on the kind of things that I grew up watching. So a lot on 90s video action and things like that. And there's always an audience somewhere for each individual niche that we cover.
Let's see. Well, we got a really hot chat here today. Well, this is really cool. Let's see. Check out his channels. James's channel. Check out his channels, Patrick. He's got some interesting takes on Kubrick. Not a Kubrick fan, but I'll take a look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. He mentioned 2001. I think it's probably the one movie I probably do like of his, but some of the other ones not so much. That's a good point. I have trouble taking the mainstream seriously at times. Yeah, they're all slappies. They're all glad handers. But then again, I don't like the contrarian either. Just for the sake of, look at me, I'm edgy. I'll dislike anything, or if it's a shitty if it's a shitty movie, oh, that's the best movie since forever. It's like, okay, we know that you didn't get enough attention as a child, but doing that, no one takes you seriously, right? It's like you got someone who's sitting there going like,
yeah, I think you can always tell when it's clickbait, can't you? So
yeah, exactly. Let's see. And Jamie's mentioning about that too. Yeah, she says there are some people are constantly hate on everything. Yeah. What do you feel about the term fan service? Do you feel studios cater too much to the public, or should they cater to the public? I mean, do you when you write your screenplays, do you think that in the back of your head, as maybe I should make whatever the characters, like maybe I should make my two main characters really, really nasty, or make the two leads really, really sweet, because people really want to see that. I mean, do you ever have that in the back of your mind, or you just write just to write it out? You're writing the story, and this is how the story's going to go, and you don't care what anybody else thinks.
Sometimes on the commissions, I'll have a kind of very simple instruction, nothing too elaborate, but it might be that, this is what distributors don't want. This is what they do want. So I kind of stick to that, do the job. I still, try as best I can to fit, a coherent story and interesting characters into that. So, I mean, like there's more recently, American distributor this thing about swearing. So I've toned down my swearing. They don't like nudity so much in films, which used to be completely the opposite in the horror genre, where it just used to be quite gratuitous. But yeah, so you kind of have to take certain things in mind. They've got this weird aversion. It's kind of easing up now, but a year or two ago, they had this weird aversion to humor. They just really, in a horror film, they didn't like any humor. So, which is quite difficult for me, because I always like to write with a kind of tongue-in-cheek.
Right.
And I think, that's sometimes better way to approach a Scarecrow film, for example. But, that's what they say, else then you have to kind of go with that.
That doesn't make any sense, because if you think about the whole premise of a living scarecrow is funny. It's just like, okay, who's really going to believe that, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a fantasy. So have some fun with it. Wow. I mean, I can understand it if they were doing a.
I mean, I don't. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. I mean, I don't believe in going the kind of Sharknado route where you're intentionally making something almost like you're intentionally making it bad. But, I think sometimes a bit of tongue-in-cheek where you kind of wink that it's not going to be brilliant because, it's being made for $20,000 or whatever it is. Kind of have to set yourself up and almost roll into it.
Yeah, I could see, yeah, yeah. You just gotta, yeah. I agree. I agree with that. I do think there should be more. I don't want every, like you're talking about the Nightmare on Elm Street. I don't want to be. I don't want Freddy spouting off one-liners. I don't think his character is, his background, his character's background does not preclude that. I mean, it'd be one thing if he got caught as a bank robber or some sort of bungling crook or whatever, and that's then he is what he is. He can make one-liners, but his characters, because there's something really unsettling just when you see people rooting for Freddy, and they seem to forget that he's actually a child
Yeah,
killer. And it's like that's
yeah,
not funny. That's not funny in any level.
right.
So make him serious. Make him like the first film. That first film it's freaking frightening. It's scary, and it should be. He's a boogeyman. But then they made him into a punch, walking, one-liners, and to me, it just really defanged the whole series. It's just really just like, wow, really, you're making the guy into he's a jokester now. He killed kids, and now he's a jokester. It just I just think it really hurt the
Yeah.
franchise. Let's see. See, see. Let's see. James is sitting there. Can I say that Top Gun was awesome? And I give it 10 bags of popcorn and 10 VHS players plus 20 Betamax cassettes. Boy, you must know Gareth, Video Tasties, because if not, you should, James, because he's a big VHS guy too. On the second thought, it wasn't all that special. I have a mood disorder. Jimmy's laughing at him for that. Jimmy's saying I have yet to see Maverick, but I am positive I'm going to like it. Maybe not love it, but at least like it. I'm gonna like it too, because I'm not a big Miles Teller fan, so I'm just gonna just like it. Um, Jamie says, what's your favorite genre of film? And yeah, let's. I mean, is horror always been your favorite genre?
Um, I don't think it necessarily is. I mean, when I was growing up, it was always action. Um, I think horror, when it's done right, and when you can kind of tell interesting stories. So, I mean, a lot of the best horror films, will always kind of they'll one thing, but you read into it another, or there'll be some metaphor underneath the whole story. Um, I like things like with Isabella Gianni. So this is really weird kind of art house horror film, which is really a film about marriage or the breakdown of marriage and gaslighting. So interesting things like that, and that more with horror than probably any genre. Um, Genre is more simple and more kind of thrilling. So that's really what attracted me more as a kid. So I'm kind of torn between the two in terms of a favorite.
Exactly. Let's see. Mr. Bones is here. Drop us some links. James mentions, are you fellas familiar with the movie The Visitor from 1979? It has John Huston in it, among others. I love that one. I have probably watched it or probably seen it, but not in a very long time. I did like John Huston both as a director and as an actor. He's actually a pretty good actor too. I would probably have to go revisit that one. Um, so what's next for you now,
Yeah,
Tom?
I've heard of it. I've heard good things. Yeah. So I've got quite a few things on at the moment. So I'm doing a couple of films with Mark L. Lester, so the director of Commando, Showdown Tokyo, Firestarter. He directed so many of my old favorites. So yeah, a couple of films with him now, which is really exciting. So I've got a horror adaptation of Cinderella. That's the first one. And then the second one, which will probably start developing soon, is more of a kind of action, home invasion action film. So I've got those two. Developing another film folk horror film with Nathan. So the director, producer, and actor of When Darkness Falls, we're going to do another collaboration. So that's kind of in the vein of kind of Rosemary's Baby. And yeah, I've just got quite a lot of things coming out. There's Renegades released later this year. So that's sort of like my first real kind of big mainstream film. So that will be coming out hopefully before the end of the year. America first, but I think it will be the rest of the territories next year. So that one is kind of an action film, revenge action film, which stars Danny Trejo, Lee Majors, Michael Pare, Louis Mandylor, Nick Moran. So it's massive cast, all of which I'm a big fan of. So I'm looking forward to that one as much as anyone.
Yeah, that'll be a fun movie. That'll be fun. I like all the gentlemen you mentioned before. A big fan of theirs. Lee Majors, Danny Trejo. That guy's a machine. I don't know how he does it, but he does it. He keeps on
Yeah,
coming out. And the good thing about it is that you wrote them all good parts. So they're not just going to be a scene on, and you know, that's one thing I really dislike. In a lot of indie films, they'll go ahead and they'll budget a day rate for one of these actors. They'll come out and do a scene or two, and then they're done. And there's no really acting for them. They're just there, and then their name gets put on the box to sell it. Oh,
yeah,
I hate that. I hate that so much. You know, you just want to tell the producers, like, quit being cheap. Write the guy or the gal a good scene. Let them sink their teeth into some script, and let them be a part of the film. I mean, really part of the film, not just a scene. Not just coming in there going, "Hey, I'm Danny Trujillo. This is my obligatory. I'm here just for 30 seconds.
yeah,
Just so you'll buy just so you'll buy the DVD." So I appreciate that.
yeah,
Let's see. Jamie
yeah.
says
So
she
that was
loves
definitely our
Cinderella.
thinking, to make sure that we made use of them.
See, Jamie loves Cinderella. Well, bippity boppity boop, sign me up for that. Yeah, I agree. I agree. That would be a lot of fun. Listen, I will let you. I'm going to go ahead and let you go. I want to thank you for coming out, hanging out with us. You'll be back with us in spirit on the last week of July. We are interviewing your two leads for When Darkness Falls, Michaela Langdon and Ellie O'Hara. We'll be interviewing them on the 26th and on the 27th. So we will be getting deep into When Darkness Falls. Those also will be a
Excellent.
2
Yeah,
p.m.
I look
start.
forward to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of
Yeah,
fun. I'm looking forward to them too. They look they look. This is the first time I've seen them. This will be the first time I've talked to them. Of course, looking forward to them because they seem very good actresses. I love their looks. Their looks are
they
just,
were great. Yeah, yeah,
yeah. Uh, Emma O'Hara. Holy cow, she could go everywhere. She reminds me. Her look reminds me of Jamie Bernadette. She could do anything. She could be a
yeah.
lead.
So
She
I
could be a
mean,
villain.
yeah,
Yeah, she's gonna be really interesting to talk to.
that was
And
exactly why we
Michaela,
cast her. Yeah,
okay. And Michaela looks very
yeah. I
sweet.
mean,
She looks very
yeah.
sweet.
So I had a big hand in casting on this one, whereas
Okay.
usually it would be someone else doing it. So that was another benefit, a thing that I appreciated in the film. And we were quite adamant that we needed the two leading ladies to really be good. So that was something we had to get right, and I wanted to be involved in that. And yeah, I'm delighted with what they did. Yeah, Michaela's great in it. She's kind of on the verge of a little breakout at the moment. She's had a couple of popular horror films as well. They've done quite well in the UK. Yeah, Jack in the Box 2 and Book of Monsters. And yeah, Emma was, was her first kind of major role. But she did a really great audition piece. So we knew right from the off that she was the right woman for the part.
Yeah, I asked you earlier about our breakout stars, and we were talking about Kelly Goody Price. The other actress I am very high on in the UK is someone I think I'm sure you'll know who she is. I'm sure you will. Is Brittany Ashworth.
Um,
Uh,
I've probably seen or heard of her, but yeah, I can't think of anything she's been in.
she was in Hostel. She just got done doing a movie called The Ledge.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I know
yeah.
what you
And
mean. Yeah,
she worked with Xavier James. She worked with
yeah,
Xavier James in Crucifixion
yeah,
with the, and then she did a Scott Adkins movie called The Accident Man, and then she appeared in a small role in The Gentleman with Guy Ritchie. So yeah, so she's sensational.
yeah. Definitely. Yeah, sounds like she's right on the edge of a big breakout.
I think so.
Yeah,
I watched her in Hostel. That was my actually my first experience with her was an Accident Man, and then it was Crucifixion. Crucifixion was they have a couple scenes in that movie that'll give you the heebie-jeebies. And then of course then she went on to do Hostel. Hostel was actually I do a top 20. That was actually my number 2 film of the year because of her.
oh, okay, yeah. I'll have to check that one
Extremely
out as
good
well.
movie. Extremely good movie. Highly recommended. And then The Ledge came out, and I'm still looking
Yeah, I've
for.
heard good things about that.
Yeah, yeah. She's showing pictures of herself doing the workout, and yeah, she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. She looked awesome. Let's see. Okay. Jamie's got a new song for us to listen to. And yeah, Darkness Falls is out on Amazon. And oh, thank you, James, so much. I hope you come back. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. And yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back tonight, James, at 8 o'clock with interviewing actress Danny Eakes. Tom, I want to thank you again, my friend. Thank you so much. I've had a pleasure. This is something I've been wanting to do for a
Yeah, me
while.
too.
I'm glad you were able to recover from your illness. That's the last time we talked. We couldn't have talked because you had no voice.
No,
Uh,
lost my voice. Yeah,
you would have been doing sign the whole time. Um,
I think
but
so. Yeah,
good things come to those who wait. So I'm glad I waited because this was a good time. Um,
yeah, me
all
too.
right,
I mean, it's nice to come with it when I've got a film out as well. So it's good.
exactly. I know. I feel like James Corden. Oh God, did I just say that guy's name? Let me take that
Yeah,
back. No. Thank you guys in the chat for coming out and hanging out with us. We'll be back here at 8 o'clock with actress Danny Inks. Actor singer Danny Inks will be here with us at 8 o'clock. And then tomorrow night, Haley from Gory B Movie, the YouTube channel, will be here. She's also a journalist too. She does writing, and she also does convention panels. Um, and she will be here with us tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Darkness Falls is out on Amazon, and we will see you. We'll talk soon, Tom. Stay right where you're at. Everybody else, thanks for coming, and we'll talk to you in about 4 hours. Peace.